You know, every time we curate speakers for this event, we realize we're making a big ask. You know, people take their time and their energy to put into their speeches, but we're not asking them, so come on stage and describe your organization or, you know, recount your success to us. We're actually saying things like, how does opposition inspire creative solutions? Or how do ancient archetypes relate to your organization's current challenges? These are not easy questions and challenges that we ask of our speakers, and many of them are just, you know, they're not up for that. But this next speaker, and all our speakers here today, they're up for the challenge. In fact, this one helped inform some of our thinking about the theme around thinking in opposites. Ridhi DeCruz is coming up next, and to say she can do that is an understatement. She, for example, puts things that are deemed perhaps illegal, historically illegal, and flips the script, turning them into public sector collaborations that benefit communities. In workshops and discussions, her facilitation methods source knowledge. They don't deliver it. They source it and serve it up in a unique way. So Ridhi DeCruz is co-director now of City Repair, a designer at Witch Hazel Designs, and a member of the Portland Native American Community Advisory Council. When she moved to Portland from South India, she brought with her insights from around the world, and she applies them to her incredible local projects from the Kenton Women's Village to the Cully Park Native Gathering Garden. Please join me in welcoming our next keynote, Ridhi DeCruz. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Yay. I'm delighted and terrified to be here together today with you. And yeah, it's a full room of smiling, beautiful faces. I want to thank Todd Ferry, sorry, I'm calling you out. Thank you for helping bring me here. And my colleagues are also somewhere around, Preeti Shah and Kokria, my fellow co-directors. And I also want to thank my parents and all the people who have contributed to enriching, my life. All right, I'm going to dive in. So I've titled my talk, What Only the Grieving Heart Knows, because I think that, especially right now, grief is such a potent teacher. And it's definitely taught me a lot. It's been part of my story and my guidance and my direction and compass. The two pictures you see on here, I've taken myself. The first one is of the moon, and it's got a little bit of shadow. And it reminds me that you know, to hold the light and the darkness and honor both of them. I hear a lot of talk about the joyfulness and the excitement, especially in our movement, the sustainability movement, the entrepreneurship movement. You know, it's all about like go getting it and action driven. And I wanna kind of remind or bring forward the beauty and just the amazing potency of the shadow side. Not in a dangerous or scary way, but that the darkness has so much to teach us. That the darkness is sometimes what the nourishment and nurturing of a womb that gave us life to can be. It's also the soil where the seed goes through its journey to become the plant and bear so much abundance and fruit. And so I bring this because I want to, you know, posit the light and the darkness, thinking about opposites, but to say that darkness has taught me a lot. The other picture to the left, and I think this was taken high up in the mountains in Ladakh, which is its own teaching. And the reflection of the jungle, South Indian jungle in the water. I was going there to bird watch, and water, another really powerful transformative force, has informed, I think, a lot of what facilitative leadership can do. You know, we're talking about elevating impact. I really like those words because I think it's got that sourcing of the hotbeds of creativity that each one of us possesses within us. And so it's more like, how do we bring that brilliance and that genius forward? What part can I play in that, rather than me kind of being the focus of the energy or the stage? So a little bit about my history. I just got back from a 1-month trip in my hometown, Bangalore, after 5 years of being away. And I can't tell you how much Bangalore plays into my story. It's been absolutely instrumental. I took that picture just a month ago. I was looking in the rearview mirror and kind of reminiscing to how this journey began. And probably one of the first seeds of my environmental activism is to the right. This was an art installation where we sourced waste just from our houses. We were like, all of this stuff can be recycled. We're middle-class Indians. We're being inspired towards environmentalism as we watch our city being transformed in such a rapid and devastating way. In that time, that's how it felt to me. To give you some stats, we saw a 1,008% increase in urbanization and concretization in the city. We had a 76%, approximately 76% loss in our urban lakes and our urban green cover. And so you can imagine, I'm 35, so I was born in the 80s, and by the time we were turning the century, in my mind, I was like, my reality felt like it was under threat, and that a war was being waged. So it definitely caused a lot of rage, a lot of anger, and I had to take that and see what it had to teach me. What did that shadow side of me want to teach me and yield? And what was I losing? Or what did I think I was losing? Here's a picture of a sacred banyan tree. We'd gone bird watching again last month, and I was so excited to see that some of our green space was still there. Who knows for how much longer, though. And to the right are some of the beautiful flowering trees that we see in Bangalore. So think about this medium-tier city in South India, very similar to Portland, actually. Strong horticultural tradition, a lot of West Coast kind of attitude, laid back. And one example I give is of the chai wala opening up his shutters at 10 o'clock in the morning and then taking a chai break at 11 o'clock. He's like, nah, it's cool. I can take a break. I've been working for an hour. So pretty laid back. I'm kind of embellishing, but anyway, you get what I'm saying. So just a really pleasant place to be, and it's probably why I gravitated towards Bangalore. And I don't want to say it's entirely lost, but there was definitely, that 76% loss in our green cover and about a 2 or 2.5 degree centigrade rise in temperature. So we're undergoing rapid urbanization in other parts of the world without the kind of socio-political infrastructure that Portland, for example, has. So when we talk about change here, sometimes I say, I've seen this, and I've seen it in way more extreme conditions. But what gives me hope is that there are these seeds of activism, there are these seeds of caring within so many of us, and if we just work together, then I think we can direct the change. Change is not inherently bad. I think we can direct it towards something more positive. And I think a lot of us gathered here, that's the question we're asking, right? How do I use my gifts, my talents, how do I bring that forward in a way that benefits other people and also our natural world? So grief and gratitude, I want to go back to that. I was enraged as a teenager and a young 20-year-old, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I couldn't even understand what was happening to my city. And I directed a lot of the rage towards the United States, because that to me was symbolic of where the change was coming from, because it was capitalism that I identified. There's a lot more nuance that a master's degree in anthropology gives you, but just stick with me. So one of the stories I'll share in my own vulnerability is it was one evening, I was with my friends, and we were just watching television or something like that. Nothing proactive. I was not into activism at the point. And my friend's dad called us over to watch the news. And so we're watching, you know, the usual, like, big flames and things happening. And then I was like, why? What's the big deal? Like, is he watching some action film he wants us to be interested in? No, this was not a film. This was reality. It was 9/11. And I found out through the ticker at the bottom. And in that moment, and I'm definitely not proud of it, but in that moment, there was a part of me that was like, serves him right. That rage, that voice of that rage speaking up. And it shocked me. I was like, wow, I don't enjoy other people's suffering. But it taught me a lot, and I leaned more into it, because what it taught me is that if a seemingly, you know, empathetic individual, at the time I was like, I'm educated, like why am I feeling these things? But it taught me a lot about myself and the world. If I could honestly reflect and say, hey, I felt that thing, and that I'm not proud of it, but I felt it, therefore, I can feel a form of connection to other people who somehow can kind of justify or not do anything, kind of collude with forces that severely impact and destroy other people's lives. And so I set my course to move into that shadow rather than to move away. So when I told my friends I was coming to the United States, believe me, all my friends were like, whoa, of all the people, Ridhi, I can't believe you are going to the United States. Some of them were even less encouraging. They're like, you're a traitor, how could you do that? You're supposed to be, you know, anti-capitalist and all this stuff. And I was like, I feel like America has some medicine for me, because I've never felt that feeling before that I did that day. And so I decided I'm just going to do it. I have no idea what I'm going to do, but I'm going to move into it and try to see what it yields. And what it has yielded is a growing sense of complexity. Like, hello, not all governments represent their people. Took me a little while to get there, but you know, that's not what many people know. It's not their reality. To them, say for you, if you've never been to India, India is the pictures and images that the news brings you, right? How often, I mean, maybe now there's a lot of people who've been to India. I'm just only partially kidding. But it's the stories that people bring forward. That's what made America more than what the news was fabricating, right? And that's what connects us, is our stories that draw that compassion and that connection. So then I was like, okay, I'm actually going to go to America, and what am I doing right now? I'm working with houseless people. I'm working with all kinds of amazing community organizers, and I'm trying to elevate the impact of the movement that I think will travel across the Pacific Ocean and impact my people too. I'm a cross-pollinator here because I think that we need to be holding each other up and not putting the blame on each other, like it's you and you're at fault and oh, capitalism. So there's part of that. And that's what brings or kind of transmutes my grief into gratitude, that I'm so grateful that we can stand here and be friends and share stories, you know? And then the other part of it is just honoring and the humility. The mountains up in Ladakh over there, pictured over there, that's one of the highest passes in the world. They've taught me that, you know, things can seem humongous and formidable, but they don't necessarily need to be that way. We went up those mountains, we came back down those mountains, and sometimes they're just the gateways through our journey, they're portals. And I think that humility and kind of like juxtaposing both honoring, but also the humility, like not taking credit. Like, I can't take credit for any of the things that were used along with my name, like any of the 500 plus community projects or the Kenton Women's Village. These are all things that we have done as a community together. And I have played a role only as a facilitative piece in a much larger symphony of awesome. So everything in its place. The beauty and the brokenness. So this comes from Ladakh again. It was really impactful on me. And here's a little bit of deconstruction of environmentalism for you. Over there, I went to this amazing lake. It was a biodiversity hotspot. Ladakh is a high altitude desert, and so lakes are not that frequent. And there was a big sign in English that said World Wildlife Fund Preservation Site. And there was some going extinct ground nesting bird. Believe me, I love birds. I mentioned that in the beginning. So it's not that I have anything against birds or anything against specific strategies to conserve our precious land. But the way it was being done severely impacted the Changpas, this nomadic group that lives there as well. And those are some of the kids that are from the Changpa tribe. And they're yak herders. They were living in yurts. They're yurt builders. And they were telling me how their ability to graze their animals, that their life is dependent on this, was severely impacted by non-grazing kind of agreements that World Wildlife Fund had brought in. And again, I'm no stranger to rage. So that enraged me again because I thought, wow, there's so much rapid development and rampant development coming into Ladakh, and a lot of people profiting off of it, whether it's tourism or other businesses, and somehow we blame those nomadic folks for the ecosystem decline. And it just felt so unjust. So I was just like, something is fundamentally wrong with the way that we frame our environmental movement, if this is what it's yielding in such remote places. And so that brings me to Portland. And I'll wind back to India. I don't want to just give you like, Bangalore and India is in flames and it's all our fault. No, that's not what I want to say. So on the left, this is just outside my house. Those are some dear friends, and we're painting the street. Why do we care to paint the street? What's up with that, right? The reason we do that is because painting the streets, like calling on the energy of gathering places, is so beautifully powerful because it brings us together to elevate each other's impact, to borrow some great words. The pathways that converge at the intersection, when they're not aligned, when our energies are confrontational, when we're not really using them and using them as a guiding force, then they can seem like we're conflicting, we're coming into conflict, we're having fender benders. But when we really kind of transmute them or alchemize them or change ourselves and our attitudes, then they really become a gathering, a kind of a container for good energy, like people coming to it, right? And so over here in the United States, the story goes that intentionally or unintentionally, who knows, gathering places were left out of the plan of how the city goes in. So we don't have that many gathering places. Therefore, we don't meet people who have different opinions from us. You see where I'm going with this? We don't know how to talk to each other if we're red or blue in the political sphere, or if we're environmental or non-environmental. We're just usually we're preaching to the same choir. We don't have that opposite view to kind of expand our consciousness or make us think differently about things, or, God forbid, help sow some compassion or understanding for someone whose life is so completely different from yours. And it's not just someone who's a poor farmer who's contemplating suicide in India. For me, personally, it's also been like, what does that bureaucrat or what does that multi-million-dollar businessman think? What's their life like? How am I able to relate to that? Like, what piece of mischief can we collaborate on, right? Like, this is where creativity happens, is when, it's easeful when we work with people who have our same values. It's also exciting and generates a whole set of new things when we work with people who are quite different from ourselves. And so that's part of the intention of the intersection painting. Initially, as an environmentalist, I was like, man, that's some not great paint going on the street. I don't know. I'm not an artist per se. I did paint some walls in Bangalore, but I'd rather do gardens or natural buildings. But then I did one as recently as 2015, and it blew me away. there were so many people there that I would have never seen at a permaculture work party, you know? We have a way of kind of boxing ourselves in without knowing sometimes into these little bubbles that keep us from connecting to people, and then we pass judgment that they're not joining us or whatever it is. It kind of plays into our isolation and our inability to move beyond our own kind of blocks. So I've been really thrilled that the kids down the street were there in a second, and they were like, wow, this is amazing. And then they started making a fairy garden in the backyard, and so on and so forth, and people were stopping by. And you wouldn't call these folks environmentalists. No, I wouldn't say so. They're just people. And community building is incredibly powerful for just drawing folks in. Nothing like having fun to make this movement go a long way. Like, you know, there is that grief, yes. Many ecosystems are going into decline, many species are going extinct, many horrific social disasters are simultaneously happening, you know? And yes, that is all there, and at the same time, there is so much positivity happening. There's so much beauty that you in your own self have that you can bring to this movement. I strongly believe that. And I think that mechanisms like our intersection repair bring that forward. I know I've done this for, 7 years, 8 years. This is my second keynote. I would never do public speaking before, you know? And it's just like, when we share the stage, when we give each other the power, when we see the gifts and we call that forward, I think that that's an absolutely integral part of what will keep this going and get us to a better place. Sure, the bioswales are awesome. Sure, the amazing, like, you know, successful business models, yes, bring them. We really need them, especially the nonprofit. I'm serious, we really do need y'all. So, like, when our creative powers combine, like, the future is so exciting and thrilling. Okay, nature and culture. Going back to that Ladakh example, what was really potent for me was how do we bring nature and culture, seemingly oppositions, like how do we bring them together, right? And I found Judy Bluehorse, who's in the middle with the red jacket. She's one of my mentors, and I'm very, very grateful to her and for her. And so Judy, just to bridge the thoughts too, she is incredible as a leader because, you know, I almost didn't make it through grad school. I would say I almost gave up a couple of times. I was like, man, I just go back to India. This grad school thing is really hard. I don't want to do this. Because it was bringing up like some real challenges. And the thing that I'm so most grateful for Judy was that she called forward. She was like, no, I see your brilliance, and you're already in it. And I was like, no, I'm not doing this groundbreaking research. Stop telling US Fish and Wildlife that I'm doing groundbreaking research, because then they want to read it, and I'm like, it's not done, it's not done. But she just kept calling me forward into my better self. And she was just like so firmly and tenderly calling me forward into it. And I didn't believe it. I was like, no, I'm not that person she keeps seeing and talking about. But then as she kept bringing it forward, I started to inhabit it. I was like, maybe this is pretty great. Maybe this will change policy. I don't know. And maybe it isn't, maybe it's okay because it's not just me. It's because I'm being held by this incredible community of urban native people that I'm just a reflection of them, and I'm just like kind of collating and compiling it, you know? And that helped me feel a little better and shake that responsibility of like, it's all me, because it's not all me, it's not all just you. And at the same time, we do have a place. The self and the collective there's just so much of a beautiful dance that we have to do with it. And I think that in our movement, I hope we're moving away from elevating individuals and kind of making them demigods, and then being upset when they're not perfect. I've seen a lot of hardship come from that. And I'm hoping we move on to this more like networked form of leadership where we can hold each other accountable. We see each other's faults and gifts, and we work with that. Just like a garden, it's got some constraints. Some plants like certain things. Some weeds do certain awesome things, and we just work with it like gardeners, like we're gardening with each other, where the ecology is our leadership model. And then a little bit about this incredible project. We are about to hire an individual who is going to be within the City Parks Bureau, who is going to hold the energy that we've been working on since, I think, before 2011. And it's Portland's first indigenous food forest. And it's in Cully Park. Portland's first indigenous food forest, right? Oh my God. Amazing stuff. Again, I cannot take much credit at all for this. Native elders have been working for a very long time and kind of doing this cultural alchemy within the City Parks Bureau to say, hey, indigenous people, like urban native people, we have something of import when it comes to land management. This used to be our land, and some of them are not exactly from here, but still. And we're finding pathways and institutionalizing that, finding pathways that are supported financially, because that's important. This work can't be done for free by people of color and marginalized people. Yep. So we have to pool our resources to elevate those who are most impacted by this. And urban people, I hope that I invite you to go and find ways to support urban and other forms of marginalized people more, in sensitive ways, please. This funding is coming in, and we fought. I wouldn't say fought. Well, it's been a struggle, so I can use the word fought. We fought hard for it. And we were like, no, this work needs to be funded. We cannot keep volunteering. For years, we volunteered for years, some of us, to make this happen. And then finally, we figured out, this is the way we can creatively interpret this law or create new political languaging to allow Native people to gather from their own lands. Isn't that crazy? But we did it. We did it because it's so important for future generations that we don't just go in and break the law in a way that isn't charming and sustainable. So that's how the Native Gathering Garden at Cully Park is moving forward. We have already done a couple of blessing ceremonies and plantings. And check it out. You can check it out on Let Us Build Cully Park website. Let's see. So the last one, how many of you here are entrepreneurs and business folks? Just curious. Should have done this in the beginning. How many of you are community organizers? And they're not independent necessarily. Great. I would love y'all to network. Because one of the things that, here's an interpretation of my time here. And by the way, how am I doing on time? Sorry. Okay, I'll wrap up. We really need funding and resources for grassroots communities. We really need it. And we don't need it in a way that's patronizing, I'm going to go and put this poor Indian person through school. We need you to foster our own autonomous power. And be in solidarity with us in a way that's really respectful. And so I hope that you find ways to do that in a way that recognizes that it's also a joy and a gift to you. When I work with houseless folks, it's not like, I'm helping this other person. They're helping me. They're helping me face some of my fears. They're helping me rediscover a part of my humanity. They're helping me find my place that's potent within the collective. Thank you.